welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles.
Navigating the randomness.
I'm Jess.
I'm Connie.
And today we are hopping back into Eclipse for the next 4 chapters.
That's right. Before we get too deep into anything, be sure to check us out. All of our social media is linked in the description below. We very much appreciate a like, follow, and subscribe. You can find all of our book review Saturdays on both Spotify and YouTube, as well as our YouTube playlist, which organize everything nicely for you. We also have our YouTube exclusive movie reviews of the Twilight movie, New Moon, and what will soon be Eclipse. You should definitely check those out. If you need a break from the god-awful that is Bedward.
Bedward.
No, we're going to stick with
works.
Bedward. Bella and Edward. If you need a break from that, we have our Who Knows What Wednesday episodes, which are also sorted on YouTube between true crime, mystery, spooky ooky from our October episodes. Just kind of a mix of who knows what. Yeah. But until then, I don't want to summarize everything thus far. So basically, the only thing you're going to get is you should watch the other videos. And we're coming up on the big battle thing. Edward's proposed. Here we are.
Yeah, well, it's a big lead up to... Starting off with chapter 21 is Trials. And also, no, you will not be listening to me this whole time because we're going to be switching because...
sickness is still here.
I apologize for my voice.
So we'll flip-flop. But I am also going to be reacting along with you, as you saw in last week's episode, where the reactions come out as I read. So we'll enjoy together. Also, before I forget, just like last week, if you see us drinking from these cans, not alcohol. It is LMNT. What did we say it was? Sparkling electrolyte water.
Yes.
It's very good. You should try it.
Not sponsored, but
Not
we really
sponsored.
like them.
We do really like them. But yeah, not alcohol. Not that type of podcast.
New. All right, chapter 21 is Trials. Bella woke the next morning. Even though she gave Edward the ring back, her left hand felt heavier. She tells herself it would be okay. They'll just drive to Vegas, get married, and he would have to fulfill his end of the bargain. The Cullens arrived home that afternoon, and they were all busy preparing. So maybe they weren't there for that conversation.
Good. For those who don't remember that conversation, Bella wants sex.
Real bad.
With Edward. Why? We don't know.
Edward was packing their camping supplies when he finished. He gives her his phone and tells her that she should call Jacob to tell him that they'll be ready for him in about an hour, and he'll know where. So Bella calls and Billy answered. Jacob wasn't there, but he would call around to the different wolves to pass the news on. He also tells her to not worry about Charlie. He has his part under control. Billy wishes that he could join them in the fight. Bella tells him to have fun with Charlie. Charlie wishes her luck and tells her to pass that on. Charlie? No.
Oh, Billy
wishes her luck and tells her to pass that on to the Cullens. They hang up and Bella passes on the message. Edward tells her that was generous of him, and Alice asks to speak to her alone. Edward and Alice bicker a little, and then Alice asks why she saw her sneaking off to Vegas and getting married without even inviting Alice.
Yeah.
Bella hurries to defend herself, saying she doesn't want to make it a big deal of things. It was Edward's idea anyways. Quote, I don't care whose idea it was. How could you do this to me? I expect that kind of thing from Edward, but not from you. I love you like you were my own sister. End quote.
You know this is sounding like someone we know, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Bella tells her, I didn't put that quote in to be like, ha ha. It's not ha ha.
Nope. Also, don't let anyone talk you into a big wedding.
If you don't want to do a big wedding, don't do it. It's yours and your partner's day. Have it be whatever you guys want, not what other people want.
And not because you want to take care of other people and make sure that they feel good.
Yes.
Because that's how I ended up in a bigger wedding than I thought I was going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And it stressed both of us the heck out. See our wedding episode. It's early. It's like the second episode in our podcast, so Go there with love and grace.
Don't judge us too harshly.
That. Yeah. We've learned a lot and upgraded our mics and lights and everything.
Yes.
Yes.
So Bella tells her that she can come, but there won't be much to see. Alice then asks how much Bella loves her. Well, if she really loves her, she would allow her to plan her wedding and do the wedding. Bella groaned and pulled away from Alice, telling her to not do this to her. Quote, I'll bet Edward would like it better if you did this traditionally, though he'd never tell you that. And Esme, think of what that would mean to her. I groaned. I'd rather face the newborns alone. I'll owe you for a decade. You'd owed me for a century. Her eyes glowed. Is that a yes? No, I don't want to do this. You won't have to do anything but walk a few yards and then repeat after the minister. Ugh. Please. She started bouncing in place. Please, 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 please. I'll never, never forgive you for this, Alice. Yay, she squealed, clapping her hands together. That's not a yes. But it will be, she sang.
Oh.
Yeah, that end quote, by the way. Oh, boy. Oh, Alice.
No.
Alice.
I remember reading this for the first time as a kid and being like, I get where Alice is coming from. Who doesn't like a party? I've grown up going to Italian weddings. Yeah. Now, as an adult, if I was watching this conversation take place, even if I saw this happening between two strangers, you know I'd do this too. I'd park my butt at that table and be like, honey, don't listen to her. She's wrong. Shut up.
Yep. So Bella yells for Edward. She knew he was listening. Edward appeared, and Bella threw her arms around him. Edward promises her Vegas. Alice gloats, not a chance. Bella would never do that to her. She's trying to make her happy, and someday she'll thank her for this. It might be 50 years, but she will eventually. Alice then laughs and grabs Bella's hand to look at the ring, only to be confused. She saw Edward put a ring on her finger. What happened? Edward tells her that Bella has an issue with jewelry. Alice points out that she already has a diamond ring on. What's the second one?
She does?
The heart.
That's a bracelet, though. Wasn't it a charm? I thought it was a charm that went on her bracelet.
It was a charm. Sorry. That ring probably was not supposed to be there. She has a diamond on already. What's the second one?
Oh, okay.
I
was like, wait, I don't remember her having rings. Like, she was the one who, if she was to wear anything, at least the Bella in the movies, it would be like those braided tie thingies.
The Bella in the movie does wear a diamond ring on this finger.
Not the best use of our time that is limited for recording. I will look it up later.
Because I remember pointing it out to you. I'm like, does that become significant later? I don't remember if it was like the first one or the second one, because it was a diamond ring on her pointer finger. I don't know.
Okay.
So Edward cuts her off. They're in a hurry. Alice assures her that they'll talk about it later. They go lay Bella's scent where they will be walking. Bella then had an idea. She combs her fingers through her hair and grabs some loose strands and drapes them over ferns. Edward agrees it's a good idea, but don't pull out your hair. It'll be fine.
Does he not know how much girls shat on the daily? I concern my husband. He gets concerned when he sees the shower. In my defense, law school, but also.
But yeah.
It's so easy. It's so easy. And if it's not for you, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Good for you.
He then tells her she doesn't need to let Alice have her way. Bella tells him to not worry. She won't leave him at the altar either way. That wasn't what he was worried about. He wants it to be something that Bella wants. Edward tells her that even if things do go Alice's way, they can just keep it small. Just them, and Emmett can get his license off the internet.
I would love to have seen Emmett marrying them. That
Does
would
he
be
not?
son of a bitch.
That's so sad.
Sorry, someone else does.
That's rude.
I know.
That is straight up rude. I don't care who takes his place. That is rude.
No, someone else does, but they do a really good job, I think.
I don't care.
Remember.
That is Emmett would have done a better job than whoever did.
I would have loved whatever, like, can you, no, this will distract too much, but I would love Emmett wedding vows.
Yes. So Bella giggles at this. That did sound better. Edward smiles. There is always a compromise. They went back to focusing on the trail. Bella stopped watching where she was going when she saw the clearing and fell and cut her hand. Because of course she did. Edward tells her it's okay. He brought a first aid kit with him. Edward offers to clean it, but Bella has an idea that Jasper will love. She stood and moved to the clearing and put her hands on everything in her path. Bella tells Edward to hold his breath. This is all she gets to do, and she wants to do a good job of it.
Oh, I hope he has isopropyl with him. Hydrogen peroxide. You getting stuff in that.
Edward assures her that the newborns will be frantic and Jasper will be impressed by her dedication, and then asks if he can treat her hand. He assures her it doesn't bother him anymore. He got over it when he thought she was dead. It didn't change how she smelled to him, but having experienced that, his reactions have changed. Bella asked where they will be meeting Jacob. He tells her here, and Jacob stepped from the shadows. They greeted Jacob, and Jacob asks where he will be bringing Bella. Edward pulls out a map and points out a line of roughly 9 miles. Jacob should pick up his scent about a mile away. Edward will be taking a longer route and will meet up with them in a few hours. Edward left, and Jacob cheerfully asks what's up. Oh, just the usual, Jacob agreed. Quote, yeah, bunch of vampires trying to kill you, the usual.
At this point, yeah. I got 3 books on that.
Uh-huh. Oh, that was end quote, by the way. Jacob picks her up and starts running through the trees. Bella tells him he doesn't have to run, it'll tire him. But Jacob tells her that running doesn't make him tired, and besides, it'll be colder soon. He hopes that Edward will have the camp set up already. Bella taps his parka and tells him she thought he didn't get cold now. He doesn't. The jacket is for Bella just in case she wasn't prepared. She was prepared, though. Alice was worried about the storm. Jacob asks about the addition to her bracelet. Bella tells him another graduation present. Jacob snorts. A rock. Figures. Bella then was reminded of what Alice said about diamonds. Was she trying to say that she was wearing one diamond Edward had gotten her?
Was she really that slow?
Yeah.
Why did I ask? I have 3 books now that tell me yes.
It's Bella, yes.
Bella.
Jacob interrupts her thoughts, though. She hadn't been to see him recently. She has been very busy, but she probably wouldn't have visited. He asks if she's been thinking a lot about their last conversation. Jacob laughed. She's either lying or is the most stubborn person alive. Bella tells him she isn't lying. The conversation isn't related to her decision.
Wait, was that the conversation after he had kissed her?
I don't know which conversation they're talking about, to be completely honest.
It's been a minute since we've read it. Someone who's watched recently, let us know.
I am sorry, guys. I don't even remember when I wrote these chapters.
No, we space recordings out a bit because life. So sometimes it's been like 3-4 weeks since we picked up on Twilight.
Yeah, this will explain what they're talking about. Some people will go to any lengths to delude themselves. I've noticed that werewolves in particular are prone to that mistake. Do you think it's a genetic thing? The first one was Jacob, then it was Bella. Back to Jacob. Does that mean that he's a better kisser than I am? Jacob asked, suddenly glum. I really couldn't say, Jake. Edward is the only person I've ever kissed. Besides me.
She didn't kiss you.
But I don't count that as a kiss, Jacob. I think of it more as an assault.
Yeah, because it was.
Because it was. Ouch, that's cold. I shrugged. I wasn't going to take it back.
Don't.
I did apologize about that, he reminded me. And I forgave you. Mostly. It doesn't change the way I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And he muttered something unintelligible.
You know that if the roles were reversed and it was Eddie Boy who had done something like that, Belle would be like, no, it's totally fine.
Oh,
It's 100%
100%.
fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I mean, granted, again, because they have the whole, the love thing going on, but there was still love for Jacob, and there was almost a coupling there. Like,
oh, we will get into that in further chapters.
That's right. I will hush.
Yeah. Jacob tries to get Bella to tell him to kiss her and is really putting effort into this.
Say what?
I think this part I was just kind of annoyed and I wanted to skip it. And so I didn't want to.
He was, okay.
Oh, because he's like, it wouldn't hurt to double check. Maybe you should try kissing someone else to compare to. And
Oh, why does that sound like our shared ex? That sounded Newton-like. Mike
Ew.
Newton-like.
Don't even bring that.
Mike Newton-like.
Right. So, yeah, so he's putting in some effort to try to get her to kiss him.
Should not have to take that type of effort to get someone to kiss you.
No. Quote, don't mess with me, Jake. I swear I won't stop him if he wants to break your jaw. End quote. Jacob continues, and Bella tells him to hold his breath. Jacob tells her she is in a bad mood today. Sometimes he thinks she likes him better as a wolf. Quote, sometimes I do. It probably has something to do with the way you can't talk. End quote. Jacob doesn't think that's it. He thinks that it's easier for him to be near her when he isn't human. That way, she doesn't have to pretend she isn't attracted to him. Bella still holds her ground. They bicker back and forth for a while, and Jacob laughs and tells her that he really doesn't want to fight with her vampire tonight. Any other night would be fine, but they have a job to do tomorrow and wouldn't want to leave the Cullens short one. Bella didn't respond, but Jake continues. He knows. She thinks Edward could take him. Jacob asks what's wrong with her. He is truly concerned. What did he say? Bella tells him it's nothing he said, it's what he did. She is making Edward stay with her. She's a coward. What would happen if she let him go and he didn't come back? If anyone gets hurt, this will be Bella's fault.
Wait, who's saying this?
Bella.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
She's upset because...
So Jacob's like, no, seriously, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And Bella's like, oh, sorry, I misunderstood.
No, thank you for clarifying. My notes can sometimes be, as you've learned.
No, the source material is rough, too.
If anyone gets hurt, this will be Bella's fault, and if no one does, she was horrible. Jacob can't believe she talked Edward out of going, but that doesn't mean anything, and doesn't mean that Edward loves her more than Jacob does. Bella tells him that he wouldn't stay with her even if she begged. Jacob tells her that that's only because he knows better, and she wouldn't be mad at him afterwards. Bella agrees. If everything went without issue, he is probably right, but she would go crazy with worry. Jacob asks why it matters if something happens to him. Bella tells him that he means a lot to her, and he knows that she is sorry. It's not the way that she wants, but it's how it is. He's her best friend, or he used to be, and still sometimes are when he lets his guard down. Jacob smiles. He's always that. Even when he doesn't behave as well as he should, he is always there. Bella knows that. Quote, he laughed with me, and then his eyes were sad. When are you finally going to figure it out that you're in love with me too? End quote. He isn't saying she doesn't love Edward, but it's possible to love more than one person at a time. He's seen it. Jacob wrinkles his nose and changes the subject. They aren't far. He can smell Edward. A solid wall of black clouds were coming in, and Bella tells Jake that he should hurry so he can get home before the storm comes. Jacob tells her that he won't be going home. He won't be sharing their tent because he prefers the storm to the smell of Edward. But Edward will want to keep in touch with the pack for coordination purposes, so he will be doing that until Seth takes over tomorrow during the fight. Bella asks if there was any way that he would just stay since he's already here, or if she begged or even traded back the lifetime of servitude. It was tempting, but no. Begging might be interesting, though, so she can give it a go if she wants. But
you and I
no.
have read too many books.
But no, Sam is calling the shots, not him. Bella asks about him being second in command, why had Jacob not told her, and asks how the whole alpha thing works. Sam was the first and the oldest, so it makes the most sense. Jacob is second in command because it comes down to lineage. His grandfather was the last chief of the Quileates and was the alpha. Bella asks, shouldn't he be the alpha then? Jacob tells her no, it's Sam's job. There's only one alpha. It doesn't make sense to Bella. Jacob tells her that he was supposed to be alpha, but he didn't want to step up. He didn't want any of it, so he didn't want to be their leader. Sam offered to step down, but Jacob said no. Bella whispers, Chief Jacob, and Jacob rolls his eyes. White specks fluttered in the air, and Jacob stepped up his pace. Minutes later, he went around a stony peak, and there was a tent up. Edward called to Bella in relief. Edward thanks Jacob. It was quicker than he expected. He appreciates the help. Jacob shrugs and tells him to get Bella inside. This is going to be bad. And then asks if the tent is secured. It is. Jacob looked up in the sky. Quote, I'm going to change, he said. I want to know what's going on back home. He hung his jacket on a low, stubby branch and walked into the murky forest without a backward glance. End quote. End of chapter 21.
All right. Chapter 22, Fire and Ice. The temperature dropped and kept dropping. It was 2 a.m. Edward sat as far from Bella as possible. Edward was worried and frustrated and mutters, maybe, but not to Bella. Bella was shaking and with teeth chattering tells Edward she is fine. Edward was almost begging Bella and asked what he can do. Bella shook her head and Jacob whined unhappily in the snow. Bella orders him to get out of here. Edward translates that he is just worried about her. He is fine. His body can handle this weather. Jacob whimpered again, and Edward growls and asks what does he want him to do. Quote, carry her through that? I don't see you making yourself useful. Why don't you go fetch a space heater or something? End quote. It's the fetch.
Go fetch.
Ooh. Bella continues to say she is fine. Quote, a sudden howl ripped through the roar of the wind, and I covered my ears against the noise. Edward scowled. That was hardly necessary, he muttered. And that's the worst idea I've ever heard, he called more loudly. Better than anything you've come up with, Jacob answered, his human voice startling me. Go fetch a space heater, he grumbled. I'm not a Saint Bernard. End quote.
I love that whole...
I do love that. I mean, he's right. He's not... What is he gonna... No. No. Jacob entered the tent and brought the parka with him, telling them the parka is for tomorrow. She doesn't have enough body heat to warm it by herself. Edward told Jacob that she needed a space heater, so here he is. Bella tries to tell him he'll freeze, but Jacob shakes his head and cheerfully tells her he runs a toasty 108 nowadays. Dang.
That's beyond cooking your internal organs.
I was going to say, that's beyond brain damage. Quote, I'll have you sweating in no time. End quote. Wasn't ready for it.
Connie, you might have the worst chapter. Are you sure you want this one?
We got it.
Because if this is the chapter I think it is, and I'm not thinking, I thought it was the next one. I think it's
the chapter that I'm thinking it is. Oh, this is going to be a roller coaster, y'all. Okay, let's see.
Sorry, but also you're welcome.
Okay.
Edward snarled,
and Jacob didn't even glance at him, but moved to Bella and unzipped her sleeping bag. Edward put his hand on Jake, and Jake growled at him to get his hand off. Hiccup. Edward warns him not to touch her. Bella pleads for them to not fight. Edward slowly moves back to his corner and warns Jake to watch himself. Jacob just chuckles and tells Bella to scoot over. Bella tells him no, and Jake tells her to not be stupid. She likes her toes, right? He crams into the sleeping bag, and once Bella felt the heat, she couldn't help but press her fingers against his skin. Bella's breathing began to steady as she was warming up, and she slowly started falling asleep. Edward muttered that Seth was here now. Jacob responds that is perfect. Edward can keep an eye on things while he takes care of his girlfriend for him. Edward didn't answer, but Bella tells him to stop. After a long silence, Edward hissed, "Please, do you mind?" Jacob was surprised. What? Edward was furious. Can he at least attempt to control his thoughts? Jake tells him that no one is making him listen. Get out of his head. Ooh. Edward wishes he could, but his fantasies are so loud, it's like he is screaming them. Jacob tells him he'll try to keep it down, and she could still change her mind. After all, there are things Jake could do with her that Edward can't, or at least not without killing her. Dang, Jacob!
That's why I was saying, I'm like, Connie, if you need me to do this chapter.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
I think this, if this is fully the chapter I think it is, this was my favorite chapter of the whole book.
I remember this chapter. No, I love this. Oh, God, I hope the movie doesn't mess it up.
It probably will.
Probably. Let's see. Bella drifts off and wakes up to a conversation going on between Edward and Jacob. Jacob is asking if he can ask Edward a question that he would honestly answer. After all, he is in Jacob's head. It's only fair. Yeah.
He's got a point.
Yeah. Edward asks which question does he want the answer to. There are too many in his head at the moment. Jacob is wondering about the jealousy. After all, he can't be as sure as he seems. Of course, it's worse when Bella isn't with him and she is with Jake. Edward, believes that she thinks about Jake often and more often than Edward likes. She worries that Jake is unhappy. But Jake knows this and uses it to his advantage. Jake has to take what he can. He isn't working with Edward's advantage, like how she is in love with him. Edward agrees. Ooh, this seems tense.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's tense in a tent.
Ha, ha, ha.
Ha. Ugh, my humor is destroyed. Jacob tells Edward that she is in love with Jake as well, but just doesn't know it. Edward isn't sure if Jake's right. The situation may drive him insane, but Bella likes things this way, and Edward wants her to be happy. Quote, the wind ripped around the tent, shaking it like an earthquake. Jacob's arms tightened around me protectively. Thank you, Edward whispered. Odd as this might sound, I suppose I'm glad you're here, Jacob. Jacob, you mean as much as I'd love to kill you, I'm glad she's warm, right? It's an uncomfortable truce, isn't it? Also, side note, I love the whole, tightens around her
I know.
protectively. I love that. Love it. They go back to talking about how Jacob knew he had to have been just as jealous as he was, he being Edward. Edward agrees and tells him he just doesn't wear it on his sleeve like Jacob does.
Yeah.
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 But that's also why I really like Jacob.
Yeah. The honesty. Edward decided to be patient when he saw how much it was hurting Bella to make her choose between the two of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob thinks that he did that because he's worried if he forced her, she would choose Jacob. Jacob's saying that Edward thinks that. Okay.
Yeah.
Edward hesitated and tells him that is part of it. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
But he was mostly worried she would hurt herself sneaking out to see him. Oh, yeah, that's why you imprisoned her. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Sure. Okay. Jacob asked if Edward would kill him if Bella chose him. He wouldn't. He wouldn't be able to hurt her that way, but it is sometimes an intriguing idea. I'm just thinking how this conversation between like mortal enemies. And it's like, would you kill me? You know, if she chose me? And it's like, oh, no, only because it would hurt her, but it's an intriguing idea.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Sometimes I think about it.
Yeah, I guess. They then talk about what it was like for Edward to walk away from her, see new moon, and actually,
Don't.
yeah. Well, the Jacob scenes are good.
I did like all the Jacob scenes.
And how it felt when he thought she died. Then they go over the possibilities Edward came up with when he realized he loved Bella. Option 1, if she didn't feel as strongly for him and moved on, he would accept that. 2, to stay with her throughout her human life. 3, take himself out of her world in hopes to force her into the first option, but that nearly killed them both. Dumbass. Maybe have to cut that. 4, what she wants or what she thinks she wants. Don't like that. When anyone says like, oh, it's what they think they want, I feel like that's very infantizing. I don't like it.
No.
Edward has been trying to delay her, but she's stubborn. Jacob tells Edward he liked option 1.
Shocking.
When Edward didn't respond, Jake continues to tell him that the first may still work. There's a good chance that she would be okay after time. If Bella had never jumped off the cliff and Edward had waited another 6 months, there's a good chance that he would have found her reasonably happy. He had a plan. Reasonably happy ain't great. Edward...
No, but I can also see where he's coming from.
Yeah, I get it. Edward chuckled in agreement. It was a well thought out plan.
Because he knows his entire plan.
Yeah. Jake believes that he could really make her happy. She could be human, be with Charlie and Renee, and could grow up, have kids, and be Bella. Bella sees Edward as being very unselfish, but has he considered that he might be better for her than him, he being Jake? Edward has considered it. In many ways, Jake is better suited for her. He is strong enough to protect her, and he has proven that. That is something that Edward will owe him for as long as Edward lives. Edward has even asked Alice if Bella would be better with Jacob than him, but of course she couldn't see that. But he can't make the same mistake. He won't force her into the first option again. As long as she wants him, there he will be. Yeah, that really should be the end of discussion. Like, I'm not loving Jake in this at the moment. I get where he's coming from, but I'm not loving it. Yeah. Okay.
This is also just two dudes talking, assuming that Bella is
asleep. Yeah, good point. If Bella decided she wanted Jacob, he would let her go. He wouldn't ever show her how hard it was, but he would still keep watch. But there is a real possibility that he might have to leave her someday, like what happened to Sam, he being Jake. Jake wouldn't have a choice, and Edward would be waiting and hoping that would happen.
Yep.
Yep. Jacob snorted. Edward was much more honest than he expected. Jake thanked Edward for allowing him to be in his head. Edward was feeling oddly grateful for Jake's presence. It was the least he could do. Quote, You know, Jacob, if it weren't for the fact that we're natural enemies and that you're also trying to steal away the reason for my existence, I might actually like you. Jake, maybe if you weren't a disgusting vampire who's planning to suck out the life of the girl I love. Well, no, not even then. End quote.
This chapter had a lot of great quotes in it.
I'm loving it. Edward chuckled and asked if Jacob can tell her about the story of the third wife. Bella is reluctant to tell him. Edward listened to Jacob's answer and he hissed. He wishes the elders kept that story to themselves. Jacob is confused. Does he just not like that vampires are painted in a bad light? No, it's not that. Bella is identifying with the third wife. She wants to be in the clearing to do what little she can, as she puts it. Jacob points out that Edward's military brother, Jasper, also gave her that idea just as much as the story. Edward whispers neither side meant any harm, and Jacob asks when their truce ends, first light or end of the fight. In unison, they agree, first light. They laughed, and Edward muttered to Jacob to sleep well and enjoy the moment. Okay, and I've been given a book. The book. There's a quote. Let's see. Edward groaned softly. Quote, I didn't mean that quite so literally. Sorry, Jacob whispered. You could leave, you know. Give us a little privacy. Would you like me to help you sleep, Jacob? Edward offered. You could try, Jacob said, unconcerned. It would be interesting to see who walked away, wouldn't it? Don't tempt me too far, Wolf. My patience isn't that perfect. Jacob whispered a laugh. I'd rather not move just now, if you don't mind. Woo! Edward started humming to himself, louder than usual, trying to drown out Jacob's thoughts, I assumed. But it was my lullaby he hummed, and despite my growing discomfort with this whispered dream, I sank deeper into unconsciousness, into other dreams that made better sense. End of quote and end of chapter 22.
Unfortunately, because that was just a great chapter.
That was a great chapter. But also, I do find it weird because we're talking about the whole, like, Edward treating Bella like a child. He literally has a lullaby for her.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
I didn't either until I was reading that. And then I'm like,
ooh.
It'd be one thing if it was like her song, but lullaby. She's the one calling it a lullaby, though, so unpack that in therapy. They all need therapy.
Alrighty.
All right, you want 23?
23. Chapter 23 is Monster. So Bella wakes up sweating, and Jacob is still asleep with his arms around her. Bella starts to squirm, and Jacob, still asleep, had unconsciously tightened his arms around her. Bella looked to Edward. He was calm, but there was pain in his eyes. She asked if it's any warmer out. It is. Edward doesn't think that the space heater will be necessary today. Bella asks for some help, and Edward smiled and asks if she wants him to take his arms all the way off. That's not necessary, though, but she needs to get free before she has a heat stroke. Edward unzips the sleeping bag, and Jacob fell out and hit the icy floor. He wakes up, and suddenly there was growls coming from both Edward and Jake, and even Seth outside of the tent. Bella yells at them to stop it. Jacob starts to calm down from Bella's touch. Bella asks if Jacob's hurt. He's not. Bella then turned to Edward and tells him that wasn't nice and he should apologize.
Oh, I mean, okay.
Edward is in disbelief. He was crushing her. Bella tells him he didn't do it on purpose and he didn't hurt her. Edward groaned and slowly apologized. Jacob tells him no harm done. Jacob curled up again. That wasn't the best night's sleep he had ever had. He'd enjoyed it, but he didn't sleep a lot since Bella wouldn't shut up.
Oh, how awful. How awful to talk in your sleep.
Yeah.
No gracias. Nope.
I talk in my sleep.
Yeah, but at least it can be like random things.
Yeah.
But if it was like secrets or anything,
Oh, that's well, unless it's really like weighing on me, then probably it would probably happen.
yeah, I just know with my mom and one of my sisters, for them, they do the lovely, like, someone's over there. And then they go back to sleep, and you're just sitting there, like, I'm not asleep. Johnny does that.
That's not me.
No, yeah, it's, I've been traumatized by sleep talkers.
Yeah. Nope. Mine would be say you told me something and you're like, you cannot tell Mitch. You cannot tell Mitch this. I'd be so like stressed out about whatever it was that I'd probably fall asleep that night and blab about it. So that is me.
Note to self. If we're planning a surprise birthday party for Mitch, you can't be in charge of it.
Oh, well, that I could probably handle, but like,
Oh my God. Well,
like something legit that needs, that
that's
has
valid.
stuff behind.
I can't even think of what that would be.
I can't either, but like, I don't know. I got it. If you somehow came up with the answer for Dyatlov Pass and told me I could not tell Mitch.
Girl, if I come up with the answer to Dyatlov Pass, see our previous episode. Girl, it's wild. I'm assuming you're a girl watching this. If you're a guy, gender neutral term. Tomb? Anyway,
Same thing.
maybe there was tombs with Dyatlov Pass. Who knows?
Ooh.
But if I have an answer to those, let's assume that it's because I am in the process of dying and God has given me a revelation.
Yeah.
Or aliens have come and told me everything. At that point,
Well,
get me an element tea and maybe a hot pack. I'm going to need help. I'm going to need fluids.
So Bella winced, thinking of what could have possibly come out of her mouth. Edward's night wasn't too bad, but it possibly made the top 10 worst nights of his life. But if he would have been able to take Jake's place that night, it would have made the top 10 best nights.
Yeah, he was in a really rough spot there.
Yeah. Edward tells Jacob that it's a little too crowded in their tent. Jake agrees and tells him that he'll catch up on sleep later. He needs to go talk to Sam. Bella suddenly realized that this could be the last time that she would see Jacob. She tells him to wait and ask if he'll stay. He won't. He tells her he'll be fine. Bella tells him to be careful, and Jake tells her to give it a rest. Alice told Sam that it'll be an hour. Bella and Edward then agree to stay together no matter what. Edward assures Bella that they know how to handle themselves. He just hates missing the fun. Bella asks what she said last night. Edward hesitated. She mostly just said her name, which was usual. Quote, near the end, though, you started mumbling some nonsense about Jacob. My Jacob.
I mean, oh.
I could hear the pain, even in the whisper. Your Jacob enjoyed that quite a lot. End quote.
Sure he did.
Bella apologized and explained that's how she differentiates between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The Jacob she likes and the one who annoys her.
All right, sis, I don't know who you're trying to fool, but it ain't us.
I know that's what she tells herself, but...
Alcoholics tell themselves that they don't have a problem. Doesn't mean it's true.
So they then talk about their top 10 best nights. Edward's number 1 night would be 2 nights ago when she finally agreed to marry him. By the way, before we get there, I really hate Edward for this.
This is the, yeah.
Edward asks if she's warm enough. She is, but why? Suddenly, Jacob howled from outside. He was in agony. He had heard everything. The howl broke off into a gurgled sob and then was quiet. Edward answers Bella, quote, because your space heater has reached his limit, truce over, end quote.
Oh, Edward's a jerk on that move. I get that he's been provoked throughout the night, but you don't send someone into a life or death battle with that.
No. How horrible was that?
No.
I want to say words that I'm not going to say on the internet, but they're there. Edward knew that Jacob was there and listening. Edward tells her that he deserved to know, and he didn't say he wouldn't fight fair. Yeah. Oh, but do we think that Bella gets mad at Edward for this?
No, of course not.
No, she is horrified at herself. Bella doesn't care if things are fair or not. Jacob is hurting because of her. She has to go find him. Bella stands to her feet and steps outside. Seth was laying on a patch of dry pine needles with his head on his paw. Edward came behind her and grabbed her waist and didn't let go when Bella tried to yank her arm from him. He tells her that she can't go after him, and besides, it's almost time, and if she got herself lost, it wouldn't help anyone. He apologized.
He doesn't mean that.
No. Bella starts sobbing. He didn't do anything. She shouldn't have done that. She should have told him, but what? What could she have done to make things right? He shouldn't have found out like that. Edward asks if he can try to bring him back so she can talk to him. There's still a little time left. Bella nodded, and Edward tells her to stay by the tent. Bella sobbed, and Edward disappeared. Quote, I was selfish, I was hurtful, I tortured the ones I loved, end quote. Bella then realizes she wasn't being productive. She couldn't allow what hurt her to influence her decisions. Edward might not be able to bring him back. She then decided Edward would never see her shed another tear for Jacob Black. Yeah, she did like this instantaneous flip of a switch. It's bad. If Edward did return with Jacob, she had to tell him to go away and never come back. Why was saying goodbye to him so much harder than saying goodbye to her other friends? This hurt her, but she couldn't have both of them. Jacob couldn't be her friend, so it was time to stop wishing for that. She had to get over the feeling that Jacob belonged in her life. He couldn't be her Jacob when she belonged to someone else. Seth started to whine and got to his feet. Bella asks if it's the others in the clearing. He yelped at her. He turned to the west and laid his ears back and whined again. She shouldn't have sent Edward away. She didn't speak wolf. Then fear began to build up in Bella. If the wrong words were said, could a fight break out between the two of them? A real fight. Seth started to growl. Jacob called from the distance that it was just them. Bella's heart sped up. They were back in view now. There was a little complication. Edward will take Seth a little ways away to try to straighten things out. He won't be far, but he won't listen in. He knows she wouldn't want an audience no matter which way she decides to go. Edward's voice broke in pain at the end. Edward kissed her lightly and disappeared with Seth. Jacob was still in the shadow of the trees, and she couldn't see his face clearly. In a dull voice, he tells her he's in a hurry, so she should say the words and be done with it. Bella apologizes for being a horrible and selfish person. She wishes that she had never met him so she couldn't hurt him, like she has been, but she can't do it anymore. She'll stay far away and he won't have to ever see her again. Jacob bitterly says that isn't much of an apology. What if he doesn't want her to go away? What if he wants her to stay, doesn't he get a say in any of this? That won't help anything, though. She tells him it was wrong for her to stay when they wanted such different things, and she hated hurting him and doesn't want to do it anymore. Jacob sighs. He understands. Bella wanted to tell him how much she'd missed him and wanted to put her arms around him to comfort him, but she didn't. Suddenly, his head snapped up. She isn't the only one capable of self-sacrifice. Two can play at that.
I think the movie's different than this. I think I'm remembering the movie right now.
Oh.
Oh.
So he's behaved pretty bad himself. He made things so much harder for her than it needed to be. He could have given up in the beginning, but he also hurt her. She can't take all the blame or the glory. He knows how to redeem himself. There is a serious fight brewing, and it won't be difficult to take himself out of the picture. Bella was horrified. He can't do that. She won't let him. Jacob taunts her. How could she stop him? He won't stay with her to miss a brawl so that she turns and leaves him once she thinks that he's out of harm's way. Bella is doing and saying almost anything to get him to not do this and to stay with her. Jacob doesn't believe anything she is saying, but he doesn't have to do anything deliberate. If she could convince him that she really did want him to come back more than she wanted to do the self-sacrifice thing, she needed to ask him. It took Bella a second to realize what he meant. Once she realized, she blurted out, will you kiss me, Jacob? End quote. He was surprised, then suspicious. She's bluffing. She tells him again, quote, kiss me, Jacob, kiss me, and then come back, end quote. Jacob was still in the shadows. He started twisting away from Bella, then took a step to Bella, still looking away. He stared at Bella, eyes full of doubt, and Bella stared back. Jacob then lurched forward and closed the distance between them. Quote, I knew he would take advantage of the situation. I expected it. I held very still, my eyes closed, my fingers curled into fists at my sides. As his hands caught my face and his lips found mine with an eagerness that was not far from violence. End quote. Bella was still and wouldn't move. Jacob stopped and told Bella that she could do better than that. She's overthinking things. Bella shook her head, and Jacob asks if she actually wants him to come back or if she... I see why the movie changed things. Or if she would rather he die. Anger surged in her. He wasn't fighting fair. Bella grabs his hair with fists. Jacob took this as Bella finally responding to him, and he kissed her again. Quote, my brain disconnected from my body, and I was kissing him back. Against all reason, my lips were moving with his in strange, confusing ways that they've never moved before. Because I didn't have to be careful with Jacob, and he certainly wasn't being careful with me. End quote. Bella tightened her grip on his hair and pulled him closer.
Oh, good. We get a quote.
The tiny piece of my brain that retained sanity screamed questions at me. Why wasn't I stopping this? Worse than that, why couldn't I find it in myself, even the desire to want to stop? What did it mean that I didn't want him to stop? That my hands clung to his shoulders and like that they were wide and strong. That his hands pulled me too tight against his body and yet not tight enough for me. The questions were stupid because I knew the answer. I'd been lying to myself. Jacob was right. He had been right all along. He was more than just my friend. That's why it was so impossible to tell him goodbye, because I was in love with him too. I loved him much more than I should, and yet still nowhere near enough. I was in love with him, but it was not enough to change anything. It was only enough to hurt both of us. To hurt him worse than I ever had. I didn't care about more than that, than his pain. I more than deserved whatever pain this caused me. I hoped it was bad. I hoped I would really suffer. In this moment, it felt as though we were the same person. His pain had always been and would always be my pain. Now his joy was my joy. I felt joy too, and yet his happiness was somehow also pain, almost tangible. It burned against my skin like acid, a slow torture. For one brief, never-ending second, an entirely different path expanded behind the lids of my tear-wet eyes. As if I were looking through the filter of Jacob's thoughts, I could see exactly what I was going to give up, exactly what this self-knowledge would not save me from losing. I could see Charlie and Renee mixed into a strange collage with Billy and Sam and LaPush. I could see years passing and meaning something as they passed, changing me. I could see the enormous red-brown wolf that I loved, always standing as protector if I needed him. For the tiniest fragment of a second, I saw the bobbling heads of two small black-haired children running away from me into the familiar forest. When they disappeared, they took the rest of the vision with them. And then, quite distinctly, I felt the splintering along the fissure line in my heart as the smaller part wrenched itself away from the whole. Jacob's lips were still before mine were. I opened my eyes, and he was staring at me with wonder and elation. "I have to leave," he whispered. "No." He smiled, pleased by my response. "I won't be long," he promised, "but one thing's first." He bent to kiss me again, and there was no reason to resist. What would be the point? This time was different. His hands were soft on my face, and his lips were gentle, unexpectedly hesitant. It was brief and very, very sweet. His arms curled around me, and he hugged me securely while he whispered in my ear, "That should have been our first kiss. Better late than never." Against his chest, where he couldn't see, the tears welled up and spilled over. End quote. End of chapter 23.
There's so much more chemistry there than any of the kisses with Edward.
100%. Team Jacob, I'm with y'all. Even though I know it doesn't end up that way, I am with you guys. Oh my gosh. Even though Jacob does not deserve Bella, or Bella does not deserve Jacob.
Well,
Sorry.
no, he doesn't deserve the mess that is Bella.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Chapter 24, Snap Decision. Bella lays face down on the sleeping bag, waiting for justice to come. Maybe an avalanche would bury her. She wished for it. Suddenly, Edward was stroking her hair, and she shuddered with guilt at his touch. He asks anxiously if she's okay. She isn't. She says she wants to die. Edward won't let that happen. She tells him he may change his mind. Edward asks where Jacob is. He went to fight. Bella thought of how Jacob has surely changed into a wolf, and the whole pack will know what happened by now. Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Seth was pacing outside the tent. Edward was silent for a long time, and Bella could tell he was listening to something. He then chuckled, stunning Bella. Quote, "And I thought I fought dirty," he said with grudging admiration. "He makes me look like the patron saint of ethics." His hand brushed against... Sorry. Oh. His hand brushed against the part of my cheek that was exposed, again with the face and the touching and the... Quote, "I'm not mad at you, love." Weird.
Mm-hmm.
"Jacob's more cunning than I gave him credit for. I do wish you hadn't asked him, though." End quote. Yeah. Bella tries to explain, but Edward interrupts. Quote, "That's not what I meant. It's just that he would have kissed you anyway, even if you hadn't fallen for it. And now I don't have an excuse to break his face. I would have really enjoyed that too. End quote.
Deep.
Edward tells her that Jacob wasn't going to actually go out in the flames of glory to clear the way for him. He doesn't hate her. Bella is surprised, but oh, Jacob, I don't like that. Bella is surprised, but Edward got a good, comprehensive look. Jacob makes vivid mental pictures. So good, actually, that he feels bad for the pack. Oh. Seth was getting nauseated. Oh my god, that's amazing. Oh, that's awful.
You can
amazing.
only imagine Jacob's mind right now.
I can only imagine. But here's the thing: if I was a pack member, you know I'm not a PDA person.
No.
You and your husband, not PDA people. None of the
No.
four of us are PDA people. With love, if I had to experience you guys having a moment, I would be gagging with love, as I'm sure vice versa.
Vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like all the people involved, it's just
we don't need to see that.
we don't need no one. It feels voyeuristic. I don't want to. Not my cup of tea. But poor Seth, poor 15-year-old Seth. Edward strokes Bella's hair and tells her she is only human, and as much as he wishes, there are holes in her life he can't fill. He understands.
Nope, just keep going, Connie. Nope, we're not going to acknowledge.
I didn't say anything.
Your eyes said everything.
Oh, in my defense, this episode, it's asking a lot of my filter, okay? Like a lot. Huh. Bella tells him that's not true. Edward murmured she loves him, and Bella tells Edward she loved him more. He knows that, but Jacob was here for her when he left, and that left a mark on her. Bella can't stand this. She'd rather he yell at her, that he is disgusted with her, and he will leave. She will be on her knees and beg him to stay. He can't do that, though. Suddenly, there was a change in the atmosphere. It's only a few more minutes, just in time for Edward to say one last thing. Quote, I can be noble, Bella. I'm not going to make you choose between us. Just be happy, and you can have whatever part of me you want, or none at all if that's better. Don't let any debt you feel you owe me influence your decision. End quote. Bella tells him to stop. She knows he is saying that because he means it. What happened to fighting back? She needs him to make her forget how awful she is. Forget Jacob, forget everything. He needs to fight. Bella didn't wait. She crushed her mouth to his. Not a good way to kiss. And he tells her careful, then pushes her face back, telling her she doesn't need to prove anything to him. Yeah. She says she isn't. This is the part she wants from him every day. Edward starts kissing her back, but stops. It's too cold for that. Yeah, you're making out with a popsicle. She does actually stink, and they will try later. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, wait, she just woke up when all this is happening. And Jacob also... Oh, that's a bunch of morning breath. That's a bunch of morning breath. And you got the wolf and the vampire smell. Okay, they will try later. He will follow through with his promise, but he doesn't want it to be in reaction to Jacob. Yeah. Lastly, they also wanted to listen to the fight. Seth howled outside the tent. Edward reassured her. Seth starts to whimper. He's just upset he is stuck here and he wants to join them. Oh,
poor Seth.
I love Seth. You're gonna, like, everything you read about him, you're gonna love Seth. The newborns reached the end of the trail. It worked. They're splitting into two groups. Sam is taking them to head off the ambush. Edward laughed. They can hear Emmett. He's enjoying himself. The second group is getting ready. They aren't paying attention. They're talking about Bella, making sure she doesn't escape. Leah took down one by herself, and Jacob and Paul took another one. Go, Leah. Edward was muttering instructions to them. Suddenly, Seth's deep breathing cut off. Edward froze. Bella didn't know what happened. Seth was suddenly in front of her. Edward urgently whispered for him to go. Seth took off. Edward was moving Bella. She was relieved. Nothing happened in the clearing. Suddenly, she was horrified. The crisis was here. Edward held a defensive position. Victoria was coming. She wasn't alone. She crossed his scent and figured that Bella would be with him, so she decided to come after him. It was always Victoria. Well, yeah, I mean, like, they should have... A dog...
Come on, guys.
A wolf? Oh, no, now I said it because it's been said. I'm also looking at dogs here. A wolf should have run with Edward to, like, mask that. Like, that just seems...
You guys could have done better.
Yeah, for all the tactical stuff you're doing, that one seems like a goof. Edward was a good fighter, and he was fast. He could make it. Bella was relieved that Edward sent Seth away. Quote, Edward's body shifted.
I had to put it just for you. And you podcast people that know.
Yes. Edward's body shifted, only infinitesimally, but it told me where to look. End quote.
You're welcome.
Stephanie! Two vampires slowly made their way into the opening. Victoria was one of them. She looked at Bella with her black eyes. She was focused and close. There was a blonde boy with her. The plan was obvious. He would go for Edward, and as soon as he was distracted, Victoria would kill Bella. Edward turns to the boy and in a soft voice tells Riley that she is lying to him. She is lying to you just like the others who are now dying in the clearing. You know she lied to them and you would never help them. Riley was confused, and Edward continues. She doesn't love him. She loved James. He is just a tool for her to use. Riley frantically looked at Victoria before refocusing on Edward. Edward again continues that Victoria knows Edward will kill him, and she wants him to die so she doesn't have to keep things up. He suspected as much already. You were right. She never wanted you. Aww.
This is really sad how manipulative Victoria was.
Yeah, because Riley's just like, what, an 18, 19-year-old kid or something?
Something like that.
Yeah. Edward moved again to Riley and further from Bella. Edward promises Riley that he doesn't have to die. There are other ways to live than what she has shown him. He can walk away now and not die for her. Edward warns him that this is his last chance. Victoria tells Riley that Edward is the liar. She told him about their mind tricks. She has only loved him. Yeah. Riley's jaw tightened. He was ready to attack. Victoria's body was starting to tremble in anticipation. Her fingers were ready to attack. Suddenly, a snarl came from no one, and Seth flew through the opening and threw Riley to the ground. Victoria cried no. Seth tore Riley to shreds. Dang! Riley didn't even... Wow, he just got yoinked out of there real quick.
Yep.
Seth tore Riley to shreds, and Edward moved again, blocking Bella from Victoria. Victoria was weaving through the trees now. She was deciding between fleeing and staying. Desire to live, desire to kill. She is a fleety little monkey.
She is, yeah.
Edward could see this and tells Victoria to not go. She'll never get another chance like this. She can always run later. There's plenty of time for that. Isn't that why James kept her around? He could have used her skills when they caught up with him in Phoenix. But that's all you ever were to him. She's avenging someone who had less affection than a hunter. She was just something for him to use, which, yeah.
Not wrong.
Riley then caught Seth's side and he yelped. Oh, I thought Riley was dead. Oh.
Unfortunately not.
Unfortunately. Seth shook it off and snapped at Riley, forcing him back again. Seth moved to be inches in front of Edward. Yes. Edward answers Victoria's thoughts. No, he won't turn on him. They have a common enemy. She made them allies. Riley launched at Seth and caused Seth to soar 10 feet and crash into the rocks behind Bella and collapse a few feet from Bella. There was a low whimper from Seth, and there were sharp stone fragments that went down Bella and scratched her exposed skin. Oh, good. Bella's bleeding. Great.
Lovely. Just what you want, right?
She on her period? That would just make things better. Cherry on top. Bella caught it. It was a long pointed shard. There was a blur of Victoria's hair and white. There was frequent metallic snaps and tears. It was getting deadly for someone, but who? Yeah, she can't follow that fight.
No.
No. Riley lurched to Bella, then looked to the limp Seth between them. He opened his mouth. He was preparing to rip out Seth's throat. A surge of adrenaline hit Bella. Each fight was too close. Seth was about to lose, and she had no way of telling with Edward. She needed a distraction, something that would give them each an edge. If she shoved the stone into herself, would that give Seth enough time to get back to his feet? Would he heal fast enough? Wow, third wife in it. Third wife.
Yeah,
third
literally.
wife.
Yeah.
Bella held the point of the shard and pushed it into the crease of her elbow. Why there? Why there? Why? That. Okay.
She'll say.
Exactly where she had the scar from her last birthday. You don't have time to be that dramatic, okay?
Oh, but she is.
Good point. Bella hoped that this would be just as distracting this time, and just as unnecessary. Victoria was distracted by Bella gasping. Things happened so quick after that. Victoria flew from the blur and smashed into a tree. Edward then caught Riley by the arm. Riley shrieked, and Seth leaped up, cutting off Bella's view. Bella could see Victoria. She looked deformed, but Bella could see her smile still across her face. Well, that's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
She sprang up. A white blur collided with her mid-flight. Victoria kicked something towards Bella. It was Riley's arm. Seth was circling Riley, and Riley was retreating from him. Seth sank his teeth into Riley's shoulder, and Riley lost another arm. Oh, Riley.
He's not doing good.
Not good. Seth shook his head and flung the arm into the woods. Riley screamed to Victoria, but she didn't flinch. Seth launched forward, and Riley's screams were abruptly cut off. Victoria seemed to realize she was on her own. She started to back away from Edward. She looked at Bella, longing, but then began to retreat faster. In a seductive voice, Edward tells her to stay a little while longer. We don't like that. Victoria bolts, but Edward is faster and catches her. Edward's mouth brushed across her neck, quote, and then the fiery tangle of hair was no longer connected to the rest of her body. The shivering orange waves fell to the ground and bounces once before rolling towards the trees. End quote, and end of chapter 24.
Ta-da!
They really did not give Victoria much time. They amp her up to be the baddie, and then this.
This is the third book. Everything is leading up to Victoria's going to come back. It's going to be this huge thing. Stephanie didn't even give her one full chapter.
Stephanie, what there was so much potential there.
There was so much potential.
Wasted, but stay tuned, hit subscribe and follow so you can be alerted when we post our next video, because the next video, if I recall, is going to be the last chapters of Eclipse.
It will be. Yep. So make sure that you are ready for that one to be posted in a week.
Yes.
And then after that will be the movie reaction.
Yes. And then Breaking Dawn.
One more, guys. We got it.
We got it. This feels like when you're in a workout and you're at like set 3 out of 4, like round 3 out of 4, where you're like, this is getting hard.
We got it.
The only way done is through. So,
yep.
Or out is through. So
yeah, because we can't just stop the series out of it. We can't do it.
It's like we have 150 burpees left.
Oh.
What, is it not accurate? It's accurate.
It's pretty accurate.
On that note, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week, or we'll see you for our Who's Knows What's Wednesdays.
Yes. Bye.
Adios. Who's knows what? I think I added an extra it's in somewhere.